Welcome to another revision program of the Bachelor of Information Technology Web Application Development 1 module. My name is Hakim Yusuf and I am the coordinator of the IT1305 Web Application Development course. So today we are going to talk about fundamentals of HTML in this particular revision program, and we are going to look at questions from the 2015 IT1305 exam paper. So let us move on to the fundamentals of HTML5, and first let us look at the learning objectives, or the learning outcomes, what is expected, or what skills and knowledge is expected from students in this particular section. So let's focus on the learning outcomes, and we start off with initially students should be able to describe the structure of an HTML document. So now it's very important that HTML structure is maintained in documents. HTML is of course a very lenient language when it comes to structure and making mistakes when you are doing the coding, but as professional IT individuals, as people who have followed a BIT course, you need to know the exact structure of an HTML document. So you need to know and be able to explain or describe the structure of a HTML document. The next one we focus on is explain different type of content models. So you have different type of content on HTML, and you need to know what these models are and how they work and what they reference to, which is very important if you are trying to develop web applications. The next learning outcome is describe what a doc type with reference to the HTML5 doc type. So you get different doc types, for example XML, XHTML, HTML4, HTML5. They basically specify different references and how different web browsers will interpret the particular code. So to know this, you need to know what a doc type is, and you need to be able to refer to HTML5 doc type, because in this particular course we are covering HTML5. Look at the next learning outcome, that is explain the advantages of XHTML over HTML. Nowadays a lot of web applications are developed for not only one browser but multiple browsers that run on multiple devices and multiple operating systems. In addition, you use a lot of development for mobile devices and such as smartphones and tablet devices. So it is important that you follow proper rules when you are doing HTML, because HTML, like I told you, is a very forgiving language that you can make mistakes and you can have flaws in your code, but it will still work on most browsers. But when it comes to smaller devices such as smartphones and tablet devices, these errors could actually mean problems how content is displayed. So XHTML uses the advantage of XML and the power of HTML to be able to create good HTML code or properly structured HTML code, so that you don't have problems when you go in to display web applications in different browsers on different operating systems and different devices. The next learning outcome we focus on is employ HTML elements to create a website with form functionality. So this is very important because you have different HTML elements like tables, paragraphs, forms and all of structures, but it is important, one of the most complex that you will be doing is forms. So up to a form functionality you should be able to implement HTML in a web application. So that is very important, that you are being able to do that and you have the knowledge and the skill to do such things. And the next one is most web applications are now multimedia integrated. So you need to know how to embed multimedia, which is a key part of web application development, and HTML5 for example gives a lot of support for multimedia content and including of such hypermedia in your web application. So it is important that you know how to embed multimedia. So now let's move on to the first question. So this question basically focuses on the question 9 of the 2015 paper. So let's go. Which of the following statements are true with respect to HTML elements and attributes? So that is very important that you know the basic structure and the doc type and the attribute functionalities and the element functionalities in an HTML. So you know the basics of your HTML. So the first option you have is all HTML elements in an HTML page must have an opening and closing tag. Now when it says must have, that means every single element should have an opening and closing tag, but HTML does not restrict you to that. For example, if you take a horizontal line, it is just an HR tag, there is no closing tag for HR. But if you take a next line or a BR line, that is also a single tag, there is no opening and closing tag. But if you are following XHTML, you basically use a slash before the closing tag, so that you actually create an opening and closing tag within one single tag. So that is an advantage of using XHTML, but in HTML there is not a must that every tag should have an opening and a closing tag. So even image, for example, including an image, there is no closing tag. So option A is actually incorrect. Next, look at option B. Attribute values may be enclosed within a single or double quotes. Now that is true, because you have attribute values and those could be enclosed in single or double quotes, and according to the opening and the closing of the quotes, browser will realize what the attribute value is and interpret it accordingly. So that is correct. Option C is also correct, because elements are not case sensitive. You can write HTML head tag or the body tag in capital or simple letters, it does not matter, or a mix of capital and simple, the browser will interpret it as a head or a body tag, and that is common for all HTML elements. So they are not case sensitive. So C is also correct. The next option is D. Attributes are case sensitive. Attributes in HTML are not case sensitive, so that is also important. So D is actually incorrect, because you can write the same attribute value in capitals or simples or a mix of them, and they will still be interpreted as the same value. The last option, E, one can create his or own set of HTML elements and attributes in addition to those already predefined in HTML. Now the thing is, you have a doc type which defines how a browser should interpret the HTML tags. So that cannot be modified by individuals. Now it is a specification. For example, in HTML5, a browser will know how to interpret HTML5. So if you define your own tags, the browser will not know how to interpret it. So you cannot define elements or attributes in HTML other than the ones already given. So that is important for you to know. Let's look at question 10. So which of the following is a block element in HTML5? So now this also refers to different types of attributes or elements, and they basically look at your knowledge about the structure of HTML5 and the makeup of HTML5 and your knowledge on HTML5 document types. So here div, for example, is a block type, because you have an open div and a closed div, and it basically creates a new section. If you look at span, span does not create a new line or a section or a paragraph, it just defines within the same text, and you can define, for example, styles for a particular text using the CSS or some such technology, and then a span is basically not a block element. If you look at image, image is also inline, it does not create a new line or a new paragraph or a new section, nothing like that. It basically creates, just embeds an image, and image is not actually a block element. If you look at table, table will create a different structure, and the structure itself will be created in a block where it is a new section, and a table because of that reason becomes a block element in HTML5. And table data, it does not create a new section, it just inputs data into a particular cell in a table. So that is also not a block element in HTML5. So you need to know these details, the structure and the makeup of HTML5 to answer these questions, and none of these questions are out of the reference. So if you read your reference properly, if you study, be analytical, and you follow the guidelines given, these questions are very easy to answer. The next question is question 11. Which of the following conventions should be observed when creating an XHTML document? So this goes back to the objective about knowing the advantages of XHTML versus HTML. So the first option, include all tags in uppercase. Now XHTML does not define such a rule. So you can basically XHTML, you can define your tags in lowercase without any problem. Include the doc type element in documents. This is a must. You need to include the doc type element XHTML in the doc type in your topmost part of your XHTML document, because that is very important, that the browser knows that it needs to interpret the doc type XHTML and not simple HTML. So that is also very important. So it is correct. The next one, option C, ensure all the tags are closed. Now like I told you, XHTML uses the strength of XML and HTML. So XML basically defines that all tags are closed. So it is true that you need to ensure that all tags are closed. So C is also a correct option. The option D, ensure all attributes are lowercase. Now you don't need to define attributes in lowercase or uppercase in such a rule in XHTML. You are free to do so. You don't need to ensure that all of them are in lowercase. So D is actually an incorrect answer. And E, include XHTML tag as the head element of the attribute. You don't need to do that, because you need to just mention it as HTML, and when you mention it at HTML and you give the doc type as XHTML, the browser will know to interpret it. So you are basically creating an HTML document but following the standards of XHTML. So E is also incorrect, because it says that the head element is actually XHTML and you don't need to define such a thing, because you are defining it in your doc type. Let's move on to question 12. Which of the following statements are true with respect to the document object model, or the DOM? The core DOM includes objects of XML and HTML documents. So the core DOM is basically comprising of XML and HTML documents, so that a browser can also interpret XML and it can also interpret HTML. So that is true, that the core DOM includes objects of both XML and HTML. The option B is, in P open tag hello and P close tag, there is only one node, which is P. Actually that is incorrect, because the element is P but hello itself is actually a node immersed between the open P and the close P tag. So it is important that you understand this, that hello itself is actually a node on its own. It's a text node, and it is included between the open paragraph and the close paragraph tags. So B is actually incorrect. In open P or open paragraph hello, open bold, close bold and close paragraph, B is a child node of P. Now it is important that you know that HTML follows a tree structure in its document object model, and when you include an element within another element, it automatically becomes a child node. So bold in this case is a child node of paragraph. So that is correct. So C is a correct option. If you look at D, each DOM level contains some required and some optional modules. That is true, because you don't need to include all the DOM level modules in your application or your web. Some are optional and some are required. So you can decide what needs to be included and what does not need to be included. So all modules are not compulsory, some are actually optional. So D is also correct. The next one is E. Every DOM node has a node name, node tag and a node value. That is incorrect, because some nodes actually don't have names, nor tags, or they don't have values. So that is also important. You can have a node without a value, and a node, for example hello, for example, is there is no tag in it in the option B. So you will know that hello is actually a node, but it doesn't have a tag of its own. So E is also incorrect. Let's move on to question 13. Which of the following is an attribute of an HTML element in HTML5? So you have the HTML element. Contents is not an attribute of HTML, it's actually a meta tag. Charset is also a meta tag, and name is actually not given to an HTML element. But if you look at class or language, they are defined in HTML. So class and language are actually attributes of an HTML element, but not contents, charset or name, because they are more or less meta tags or included in other elements and not HTML5. So that is also important to know, that you know the proper elements in HTML, and also that you understand what are the attributes of these particular elements, and specifically the main elements of HTML, such as the HTML, the head, the body, paragraph, div, span, table, and such form and such main elements of HTML5. So you need to understand those. Next, we are going to look at a code sample. Now it is important to know that certain browsers will not support, or you will have JavaScript not enabled. So we need to know how to deal with such technology. For example, if your application insists that you run JavaScript, you need to tell the user that you need to enable JavaScript, or you need to use a browser that supports JavaScript. So the way to do that is using the NoScript tag. So if JavaScript is not enabled or not supported in a particular browser, you can send a message, and the NoScript is used to do that. So let's look at what question 14 relates to this sample code. So look at this code, and let's go to question 14. Which of the following statements are true with respect to the above HTML document? When JavaScript is not supported by the browser, JavaScript is not supported will be displayed. That is true because the main idea of NoScript is to check whether JavaScript is supported or whether it is enabled in the browser. So that's the main thing it looks for. So as soon as JavaScript is not supported by the browser, it will throw the message JavaScript is not supported. The second option, when JavaScript is disabled in the browser, JavaScript is not supported will be displayed. That is also true because that is what NoScript actually checks for, whether it is supported or whether it is not enabled. The option C, when JavaScript is not included in the web page, JavaScript is not supported will be displayed. Now that is wrong, because what NoScript does is checks for whether it is supported or whether it is disabled, not whether JavaScript is embedded in the web page or not. So C is actually an incorrect option. Option D, when the latest version of JavaScript is not installed on the client browser, JavaScript is not supported will be displayed. That is also incorrect because NoScript will only check whether JavaScript is enabled or not the version of JavaScript that is enabled in the browser. So if any version of JavaScript is supported in the browser, it will not display this message. So D is also incorrect. The option E, when there is an error in a JavaScript on the web page, JavaScript is not supported will be displayed. That won't happen because the browser will not relate to errors in the JavaScript and make the NoScript tag work, but it will only check if it's enabled or disabled. So errors is not related to the NoScript tag. So E is also an incorrect answer. For our next question, again we will have to focus on a code sample. So this is a typical form text, it's a login form. So if you look at it, form action equals ... login underscore action PHP. So that will be the action that it will the web page it will redirect to, or the PHP page it will redirect to. The method is post. Now that is important that you remember. You can also have labels, you can have input type, which are text boxes, you can assign values that are predefined, and a size for a text box. you can have the password, the input type, and also the name of the particular password text box, and then you can have the submit button and a reset button or a clear button. So that is a typical form. If you look at the question, which of the following figures correctly display the form in the above HTML document? So let's look at this. If you remember the code and you have the paper with you, you can look at the code. If not, let us just go back. So remember these. If you look at it, there is no space between the label username and the text box, and there is no BR tag between the text box and the password label. So by default you can understand that the username is in the same line and the password is also in the same line. So also there is no BR tag after the password enter box or the submit button, so it will all be in one line. So that will be the correct display of this particular form. If you look at the other ones, you will see that they are in different rows. So there is a BR tag that has been inserted, and if you look at the second image, the username, where the username entering field is blank, you can see that there is no value assigned. But if you look at the code, you will see that actually there is a value assigned, which is user name, that is displayed in the above proper answer as well. So it is important that you follow and you are able to visualize HTML code. So the only way to do this, if you really have programmed using HTML, by just looking at a book and studying HTML code, you will not know these simple features and what these different elements do. So to know this, you need to have actually played around with coding in HTML. The next question is, which of the following statements are true with respect to the form in the above HTML document? So if you remember, the action was /login_action.php and the method was post. So let's look at the answers given here. The login action PHP file is located in the same folder as the example.html file. It is not, because it is // it is not / or lacking the /. So if it's // that means it's in the parent folder of example.html. It's one folder above in a folder tree structure. So A is actually incorrect. When the submit button is clicked, the data is sent as a part of the URL. Now it is using the post method and not the get method. If you are using the get method, this would pass the data in the URL, but it is using the post method, so it will pass them as variables to the action login action.php file and not via the URL. If the label tags are removed, the form will still consist of the username and password before the text field. It will, because labels are there to actually categorize and make it prominent in HTML, but if you take the label tags away, where you can apply different styles, yet they will still work with the username and password being displayed as text fields. Option D, the maximum number of characters that can be entered in the username field is 20. Now if you look at this, it says 20, but that is the size of the text field and not the maximum number of characters. That does not have a limit in this particular form, so you can have any number of characters. It is only that the text field will be displaying 20 characters width. So that is also important that you know this, and the only way to know this is actually if you have really created a form and worked around with these different attributes in different fields of this particular form structure. So D is actually incorrect. Next, E, if type email was used instead of type text in the field will be automatically validated and checked for a correct email address. Now that is important because with HTML5 they've started validating an email address in a particular field. So if you enter an invalid email address, it will show a message that it is not a proper email address format. So it is important that you understand the difference between HTML5 and previous versions of HTML. So HTML5 actually supports email verification in a text field when you enter it into a form. To answer the next question, let's look at a code sample. Now this is a hyperlink to ucsc.cmb.ac.lk/index.html and the anchor tag news. So let's look at the question that originates from this. Which of the following statements are true with respect to the link UCSC news? Now you need, if you have created anchor tags and worked with different references and different attributes, you will know that these anchor tags work in different ways, or the hyperlinks work in different ways, and they do different things when you change the different set of attributes. So if you have done this really in real life, you will know the answers to this particular question. The first option is, when clicked, it will open the link document in a new window or tab. It will not, because basically the default value, because we haven't specified, the target is self, so it will open in the same frame. So it won't open in a new window or a tag. So A is incorrect because the default value is self for a target. When clicked, it will open the link document in the same frame as it was clicked on. Now the target, the default value, since we haven't defined, is self, so it will open it in the same frame. So the option B is actually correct. When clicked, it will open the link document in the parent frame. Now there is no parent frame here, but it will open it in the same frame as it was clicked on, because it doesn't go to a parent frame. Option D is, when clicked, it will open the link document in the full body of the window. Now if it is embedded in a frame, it will open it in the frame, and if the main frame is a single window, then it will open it in that single window, but it won't open it in the full body of the window. When clicked, it will open the link document in the frame with no assigned name. Now the thing is, target is given self, and it will open it in the same frame without going to a new frame that doesn't have a name assigned to it. So that is also important. So let's move on to the next question. Which of the following statements are true with respect to the above HTML document? So now it is mainly focusing on whether you know your elements and your formatting elements especially. So this question basically focuses on your HTML knowledge. The EM tag, or the emphasis tag, will make the text bold. Now that is incorrect, because the emphasis tag basically makes the text italic. So A is incorrect. B, the italic tag and the emphasis tag will both display the text in italic, so which is true and which is correct. The strong tag will display the text in bold, that is also true, same as the bold tag. So option C is correct. Option D, the strong and the bold tag will both display the text in bold with the same thickness. So that is also correct, because both of them display bold text with the same thickness. Strong and emphasis will support the screen readers by differentiating text appearance for visually impaired web users. Now the thing with this is, if you are using screen readers, visually impaired people do, you need to sometimes emphasize tags. Now if it's made italic or bold, if you are visually impaired, you can't see the difference, but the screen reader will emphasize if you use the emphasis tag but not the strong tag. So that will basically, a person who is listening to a screen reader know that you are emphasizing on a particular text. So let's move on to question 21. Which of the following details can be added to an email link? Now hyperlinks, email links, forms, tables, these are all the things you need to know about and know their attributes so that you are able to use them efficiently and effectively. Now in HTML5 they have improved a lot on the email linking capability, or the email hyperlink. So the email element, mail to attribute in a anchor tag has improved drastically, that you can actually specify a lot more things. So here it says sender email address. Now the problem is it still does not allow you to specify the sender email address in a anchor tag, because that is defined by the basically the mail server that sends your email. So you are not allowed to do that. You are allowed to send carbon copy email addresses. You are able to specify the body of an email, the subject of an email, and also you are able to send a BCC or a blind carbon copy email address in this particular link. So B, C, D and E are correct, but A is incorrect in this particular question. And now let us also look at a sample display. Now, like I told you, you should be able to look at the code and visualize what HTML will produce on a browser, and you should also be able to look at what's displayed on a browser and decide what particular code is required for you to display this on a particular browser, or how you need to code in HTML. So look at this. So you have UCSC, University of Colombo School of Computing, BIT, Bachelor of Information Technology. So let's look at what will display this. So the question is in your paper is, which of the following codes will display the above listing? So you can have ordered list, unordered list, but here you have a descriptive list. So in this descriptive list, the descriptive term is UCSC, or the defined term is UCSC, and the description which is given in the DD tag is actually University of Colombo School of Computing. So UCSC is actually described, the term UCSC is described using the DD tag, and then you have descriptive term BIT, and it will be described as Bachelor of Information Technology using the DD tag. So you have what is called a description list. So you need to know that, and that is actually given in your reference in your syllabus. And the final question we are going to talk about is question 27. Which of the following HTML code segments can be used to embed a video and HTML page? So this is related to embedding multimedia or hypermedia in your web pages, and this refers to the first option, media, source UCSC AVI, and you give the width and the height. Now the thing is, there is no such thing as media tag. You don't have such a tag. So this is actually a misleading answer. So A is incorrect. So if you look at option B, you have a tag called object. You can have a data in an object. So the reference is object data equals UCSC.avi, and then you can specify the type, which is video AVI, and you can specify a height and width. So that is correct. Another way of embedding a video file is using embed. So you have in the embed you have a source file, not a data file but a source file. So embed source UCSC.avi, you have the width and the height defined. Again you have the media tag, so again it is wrong. So D is not a correct answer. And E, you can also embed video using object embed or the video element. So video element also has a source, so UCSC.avi, you can specify the width and the height, and you can also specify what controls you want to embed in the player. So this is also correct, because video files are allowed to be embedded in HTML5 using object, embed and video. Object uses data, embed, and video uses source. So that is very important that you be able to use multimedia in your web application. So that is it for today, and thank you very much for being with us, and hope today's program did help you gain some knowledge and know how to approach the IT1305 paper during this particular exam. So thank you very much.